Why
And,
so many tools, Jim?
what?
Why so many tools?
Oh, Don, I've been a long time getting here. Now, the two that I use most are hidden. They're off on the rack to the left. My 3/8 inch bowl gouge and my 5/8 inch bowl gouge. And I'm starting to make peace with spindle gouge. So,
Most people go the other way, Jim. They start with spindle gouge.
oh,
And,
Yeah.
okay.
in schools, if you learn, actually though, in schools you're probably scraping, but
Now,
they usually start with spindle
Jerry, am
gouge.
I saying the right thing? I meant the little thin spindle gouge, not the big round one that you rough
You're
out.
talking about 3/8 spindle gouge,
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I think the Americans call a profile gouge.
Oh, really?
Do
Well,
they?
detail. What's a detail? Well, I know the difference is how thick the flute is between the detail and the
Yeah.
spindle.
Uh,
Yeah.
Well,
the
that's
difference is
makes the
the
difference
angle of the
between a bowl
crack.
gouge. The difference between a bowl gouge and a spindle gouge is also the depth of flute.
Yeah, and the shape of it too,
The
isn't
shape
it?
of it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. How much meat is below the cutout?
But when you
Well, that would be the other interesting question, Don. What tools do you use most? In like
right,
uh, because yeah, I'm trying real hard. I still haven't gotten over to the skew side. I got to get over the spindle gouge first, and then I'll try the skew. So
Jim, come to the skew and your spindle gouge will fall in place.
Absolutely, absolutely, Don. Use the skew first, and then your spindle gouge will become an amazing tool. But you master the skew first.
Yeah.
oh yeah, but will my fingers survive the skew? That's the trouble.
No, but your
No,
fingers
you-
should be nowhere near the cutting edge, Jim.
No.
Oh, I
No.
know, but it might kick. So,
No,
But
if you
you're
kick,
all, yeah.
you're not using the right position of the skew. The
Oh.
skew is the bottom third of the hill.
and that's kind of the
Right.
same way with the spindle gouge. You got to stay on the bottom half of it or the
You've
bottom
got to
third.
be using
Yeah.
the third between the point and the wing.
Yep.
And if you do that, you won't get a catch. The other thing you must also remember is that when you've got it set to your wood, to make certain before you even start that both points are nowhere near the wood.
Oh, okay.
Because if you got your rest set wrong, you could still catch with either the heel or the toe. So make certain that you're clear and you are outside of the radius of the piece you're turning so that you are clear and you'll get a nice planing cut. It's purely using a plane, but without the metalwork around the blade.
I'm going to have to put a sign in my shop. This is the way you use a skew as per British Don. And then have the list. 1, 2. You just gave me the things to watch out for. I could write up a three-point thing. So
Yeah. It's something when you're teaching, you don't really think about telling somebody that until you see them do it and you say, well, you brought you down, you're coming close to your 2 points.
Yeah.
And
It's called riding the bevel, isn't it? You ride the bevel and then you slowly lift the handle until it engages the wood. You don't just launch into the wood.
Yeah.
And Jim, I'm certainly not one to give advice on a skew because I haven't got it mastered either. But I've heard that an important piece is to put a what do you call in the tailstock one of the
ring center.
Sorry.
The ring center?
Yes, a ring center. And that way, if you do get a catch, the wood will just spin rather than having a really nasty catch. So it helps.
That's another safety tip.
No, wait. You lost me. What is this spin center you're talking about in the headstock?
The dead center.
A cup center in the tailstock.
No, in the headstock.
Oh, in the headstock. Oh, that's where I got it wrong.
It's called a safe drive. The one-way makes one
drive.
called a safe drive. It's just a round cup.
Yeah.
Ah,
I have one like that. It's not made like that. It's a the little circular serrated. Oh, I just have any little catch. It goes.
Yeah, but
You don't need one of those.
it's a stem center
That's a
or
step
a
center.
multi-tooth center
Yeah.
like
That's
this.
it. That's it.
And it works. It works almost as well as a safety center. But you do have to have the end of your piece perpendicular. You can't have an uneven piece or it won't engage strongly enough if it doesn't touch the whole surface of the wood. That's the one downside about it. But you don't have to hammer it in like you do with a spur drive.
You know, Mike, the other thing is I discovered those are useful for marking the end of my blanks when I'm doing off-center. I have a
Yes.
small one
Yeah.
and I have a bigger one, and they're about the right size of the two differences I want. So
The
I've
other
been
thing,
One of the
Jim,
things you guys are talking about with that spur center or the end center is that, which is another thing with the skew, and that is that you have to be delicate with the tool. And if you're pushing too hard or trying to make too big a cut, you know, that spur center, that end that doesn't allow you to do it because it just stops. So it also teaches you to not take too heavy a cut when you're skewing.
yeah.
And to sharpen your tools.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Jim, the other thing is never come on from the end.
Yeah.
Right.
Always go off the ends at either end, tailstock or headstock. Don't try to start from your tailstock end because that will also give you, because you're trying to get the bevel and you cut some. So go that towards the tailstock, towards the headstock.
But don't start at the end. Start in on the piece, right?
Don't start in on the end. Clear the end. Come in a ½ inch and go along, and then come back and take that ½ inch off. So you're coming off the wood, not trying to go into it. Make sense?
Absolutely. I'm going to add that one as the fourth point from Don.
John, I
Jim?
think the way I describe what you're saying is you always try to cut downhill and not uphill.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another way of putting it, Doug. Yeah, absolutely.
You're losing me, Derek.
I'd like to
You're
throw
losing
in
me.
a new variable here. If you're doing long planing cuts, say you were doing stool legs or something, you know, balusters, I have a 1 1/4 inch Hamlet spindle roughing gouge, and that is my absolute favorite tool. You got a wing that's about 3/4 of an inch long. Sharpen it. You can even go to a higher degree bevel on it. It's usually at 45, but I know the fellow that does the record demos, he has a 30. And that is a fabulous tool, saves you lots of grief, gives you a cut that you can sand at 220. Then there's lots of places, yes, the skew is beneficial, but in those simple long planing cuts, it'll outdo the skew any day. Much faster, much quicker wood removal.
I'd have to disagree with that comment because if you just get a bigger skew.
I have one. I made 1 1/4 inches, 1 3/8.
Yeah.
But it's so easy and flawless.
It's 10 o'clock and it's time to start. I think it's 243. Am I right? Somewhere close to that. John can correct it. Maybe you all know it. John is down today for the count. He's apparently got a bad cold or something. So this morning I was about to crawl in the shower and my phone went off. He said, "Hey, can you guys cover me?" I said, "Yeah." So between John Z and I, we're supposed to host this thing. Not that you folks need any hosting. But I don't see any hands up. And I guess we start out with, it's toward the end of the month, so there's probably not much business to be announced except the upcoming first week of the month is usually big club meeting times. Any clubs out there want to make a comment or an informational piece about the gathering times or what you're doing? Oh, nobody wants to tell what their club's going to do. Okay, that's fine. Is John on? I don't want to keep blowing ahead if he's going to be the host. I had I will take the privilege of what John does sometimes. I had a real breakthrough for me, and I don't mean literal breakthrough this week, but I managed to turn after trying many times off center circular, like Barbara Dill does a lot of, and I've tried them. When Doug was up here a couple weeks ago, I tried one. I did it this week after a couple failures, and I guess the old adage is don't let your mistakes define you and learn something from them. So I learned. I'm going to share quickly. Are you guys seeing that?
Yep.
That's my very first circular circular type off-center turning. Now the top of it where the candle sits in was dead center all the time. I rotated only the bottom. It's 1.5 inches wide, so it's not very wide, and it's 10 inches tall. I had put a shot in the basement. How do you like that? I put shot in the basement. I put shot down here, but it worried me a little. My wife didn't kind of let me put a big tall can. Speaking of which, I think whoops, wrong way, guys. I put a big tall candle in it, and she was a little worried, and I think she was right. She usually is. She's my protection and my craziness. So I made a little base and stuck it down in there as adding some more leverage. But that's my success, and I was all excited. Barbara congratulated me, so I said I finally did it after trying. I looked at her video 3 times to see all the details of how she did it. So guys, that
Great
was
job, Jim.
Hey, I'm satisfied. By the way, the wood is heartwood from persimmon tree, a big old persimmon tree a friend of mine gave me, and the heartwood on the persimmon is very narrow. I mean, you can have a 30-inch width tree and only have less than a foot of hardwood in the middle. And it's beautiful stuff. And that was also part of the reason I think is cut better for me. This is good. You can't use wood that's going to flake out or chip out. I mean, oak drives you crazy trying to turn these things because it just breaks off the edges.
What do you got on there for a finish?
What Mahoney's walnut oil is on it. Yep. That's my go-to. And
How
then
many
I
axes, Jim?
what?
How many axes did you use?
4.
And which tool did you use?
I knew you were going to ask that. I liked my 2 tools. I like my 3/8 inch bowl gouge, but you know it's too wide when you want to get down in there. So I had to go to the spindle gouge with
What's that?
my heart fluttering to that I would wreck it.
Well,
But
congratulations. You managed it.
thanks, Don. Yeah, and I got sharp edges and all. They were so sharp. I touched them just a little bit with sandpaper because they were just too sharp.
Yeah, watch your fingers when you're sanding.
Oh man. Oh yeah, because it'll slice you quick. Yeah, and Don, you would appreciate this. I thought of you and you guys in England. I don't know, maybe the U.S. and I just don't know. It require these metal inserts for the candles, and I didn't have any, so I ordered it from Amazon and measured and drilled it in, and it fit perfect. More perfect than when I have it there. So.
Just like a straight edge funnel.
What did you say?
Is it just like a straight edge funnel?
What? I'm not understanding you, Stu.
Oh, never mind.
Oh, okay.
I thought you'd catch that, but don't worry about it.
A straight edge puddle. Is that a Canadian thing?
No, it's just funnel. It's straight edge. It's not tapered, eh? So it holds the candle. That's the funnel part of your.
Oh, I see. I missed the funnel part of it.
There you go.
Yeah, I had to give up on restoring funnels when I took multi-axis multi-axis turner, there's no way to repair those funnels. They just,
That's
they
right.
break, they,
Yeah. No
yeah.
opportunity there.
By the way, I need to congratulate you. Guys don't do this, but I love your bib overalls, by the way. I need to get them. I need to
They're
get
awesome. I live in these things totally.
them. Well, who else wants to share?
Well, I've got last week somebody asked me about Stewart Furini, and I've got a little 3 or 4 photographs of his which I could show you because I believe he's coming over to the States and Canada around about May, June time. So if you'd like to see those, I could show you and then show you a couple of bowls I made.
Hey,
Sounds good. Let's go for it, Don.
Go for it.
Ready?
Here we go. Do the share first. Right, this is from Stewart Furini's demonstration he did the club twice. This is his first one, and then we had another one a couple of weeks ago. This is just doing texturing and colouring. When he does a demo over here, he never actually finishes anything. He just takes a blank and turns the face off and texture it with something or the other. So this is one showing different colours. You've got to excuse these because these are all taken off of a VDU as they're turning because we didn't have the camera set up right. There's a section of 5 different finishes that he's done, colouring and what have you.
Don, are those actually textures on the like striped ones? Are those textures or is that just paint?
No, some of them are textured, some of them are just painted. This one here, this is textured.
Yep.
And then you can see this one has been textured.
That one looks textured there in the corner.
That's textured as well. This one is only half textured.
Okay.
What happened there?
What's he using for those straight out textures? I mean, what's he using to make them?
Yeah, and then he just sprays it with his air gun going outwards. And this one was black and then sanded off. And I believe he put colour of dabbed on with paper towel, gold or yellow over the top of the black.
What? No, Don. How does he make the physical textures like the one on the other 4 are all have these straight line textures? How's he make those?
He did that literally with a Dremel going across, or not a Dremel, an Arbortech, and just cut lines through it.
Yep. Okay. Yeah.
Now, for some unknown reason, why has that come out like that?
Don, down at the bottom, just drag your little blue button over a little. I think it'll correct it. Maybe not.
Your screen sharing is paused. So
Uh-oh.
why is it paused?
Your computer didn't like it. So
Something.
let me see. Can you stop it and then start again?
If I do,
You might lose it, huh?
might lose it altogether.
Huh.
There we go. Right, reduce it in size.
Yep.
It still won't reduce it. Come on, what's going wrong?
Do you see it down? Do you see it along the bottom of your screen, a little blue button? Down at the bottom, right? Will that make it smaller? On your right lower corner.
No.
Up.
Oh, here we go. Right, this is another one. This shows you the different texturing that he did to the bowl. You've got here, he's used a ball cutter on a drill and drilled it in. This one he used a larger cutter on the Dremel and cut grooves. The next one, which is in black, I'm not quite sure what he did there. And again, this one here was done with blue with a ball cutter, and it just showed you the different textures on it.
Don, are any
This
of those
one,
bird's eye, what you call bird's eye cutters, or is that
yeah,
what they
like
call
like a burr, a ball burr.
Oh, yeah, no, but I meant bird eye. Isn't there one? I think Sherry's used it already.
It's
That's
That's
called,
yeah, that highlights it, doesn't it? It brings it up rather than take it down.
okay.
Yeah. This one, he turned it. He then used his Uppertech again and put all this black puzzling around it, sprayed it black, and then turned off, very gently turned off until he removed all the black from the what is now yellow and gold, and then resprayed that afterwards. Now this one he did by taping up. He first of all taped the whole box up, and each piece of tape went over the next piece, and then he sprayed one and took the colour up, tape off, and then carried on so forth and so forth, so until you get this strange looking setup of colour.
He has a video on that one, and it's really interesting how he did all the taping and make sure he overlapped just the right way. So if you get a chance to look at that video, it's really good.
What's his name again?
Stewart Furini, F-I-N-I-N-I. Oh, sorry, F-U-N-I-N-I, Furini.
Actually, I don't think there's an N in there. I think it's
No, it's R.
F-U-R-I-N-I.
Furini.
Furini.
F-U-R-I-N-I. Furini.
You're probably more up to that than I am. So that's that one. And then this is another one which he did. One was on the lathe that he was showing us, and the one in front, he actually passed around the audience whilst they were looking. Now, there's no texturing actually on this. It's purely spraying the paint with his air gun from the center outwards. And then he highlighted it by turning that centerpiece just to highlight the colors around the bowl. This one, this was textured, and then he sprayed some blobs of paint on, spun it at very high speed to spread the colors out where you can see the reds. And then he airbrushed the other colors on afterwards.
And was there red on the ceiling afterwards?
No, because I don't know how he's going to do it, because he has a box which he sits over the whole piece. It goes over the lathe. He has an extraction unit on the top.
Oh, geez.
And the extraction unit has a filter in it, and he switches that on before he even starts to spray with the air guns. Or if he's spinning it, you'll notice that the sides of his box are beautifully coloured. Now, this is another one,
glasses. Yeah.
which is like a starburst, if you like. You can see the box, and if you look on this right-hand side, you'll see all the different colours that are on the box. This is about 6 inches diameter, thickness here, because it goes right over the whole piece of wood. But he's made it bigger since. This isn't the one with the extractor in. He did that afterwards. But again, this is one where he put some dobs of paint on and literally spun it at high speed and let the colour do what it wanted to. It's very difficult without showing you the whole program of what he did, but I'm just showing you the different things that he did. then the club had a competition for smokers last week, and this is a smoker at his lathe. It was about 6 inches tall. He made the lathe, the tool in his hand, and I think he's got a cup of coffee. This is just a couple of, I'm out of focus on that one, but that was a Father Christmas. And then this was my smoker. He's only 5 inches tall. And this smoker here, bloke drilled a hole in the bottom to allow air to come in to blow the smoke out the chimney. What he didn't account for was the platform he put his burner on, covered the hole. So it didn't work. But that's
I love it. I love it.
Is there any, before I switch that share off?
Any questions for Don?
On that? But not that I can really answer because they weren't it wasn't my demo. But
yeah,
what I'll do, if you highlight me, Jim.
Yes, sir.
I'll show you a bowl.
Hang on a sec. Spotlight for everybody. There you are.
Now, I explained earlier to the few that we come on early. This, I turned the base, and then I turned the front, slightly dished here, sprayed the whole thing black, arbortect all these colored pieces you can see, and then using the mouth blower, not an air gun, I painted all the different colors onto the rim.
How'd you get the interesting inside? The inside is really spectacular.
Right. The inside, I then turned the inside and painted it black, acrylic, and using Joe Sanderson's iridescent paints, put the paints on, and again with a straw, just a drinking straw, blew the paint lumps out all over the base.
You had the paint on it and then you used the straw to move it around by blowing on it. Is that what you were doing?
Well,
you weren't blowing the paint through the straw.
No, the paint was on the wood.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I blew air onto the bubbles of paint.
Okay. Sounds like fun.
To come up with that. And then I sprayed the whole thing with a gloss lacquer.
That is very interesting.
And then the last thing just to show you was a box.
Woo!
Again, it's been textured on the top and textured on the sides. I don't know if I can get, so you can see the grooves. And then I coloured it. If I try to match the colours up, which I should do, they will match. And that's another way that I did a colouring of a box.
That is all you need is magnets in that yet. Done. So it lines it up.
That's tight enough, Jim. I've got a popper.
Oh, but the magnets would line it automatically.
I put magnets in. I put magnets in
your
mine.
pocket.
I put magnets like Jim does his, but I put them with the rim round, and I always have put that rim to take away the magnet from the outside.
Yeah, but that one is a lovely piece. Yeah.
What's the wood, Don?
This one?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a bit of ash.
Very good. Very nice.
Textured at the top as well, so that when I did the colouring, the colouring came round the front every time. So, but I didn't do the bottom. I only put a little mark in the bottom.
Hey, I got a question for you related to that. I have lots of pieces of wood in my shop. Don't ask me what they are. Some of them I just can't identify. So now I'm starting to write on each piece. When I cut off a chunk, I write on it what it is before I throw it in the bin. I mean, not the trash bin, but the storage bin. How you like that? Storage bin. Because it's hard to know some woods, at least for me. So
Some is difficult. When you look at the grain on this one, you can tell that it is an ash
okay.
because of the graining of it. This one, that was a bit of sycamore.
Oh,
Yes.
Looks a bit bland there, but of course you turn it over and then suddenly you've highlighted it.
That way they won't turn it the wrong way, Don.
And, you know, we're going back to the days of Jimmy Clues. What Jimmy said was, if a bowl looks nice that way, does it also look nice that way? And I always remember that with Jimmy, that something always looks nice and is in proportion if it looks nice both ways. Because Jimmy stayed with us one time. So that's all I've got unless there's any questions.
I
only brought that in because there's no hands up.
Oh, I know Toby. I was thinking today that Toby was going to show us another sequence, and I forget what it was. Do you want to do that now, Toby?
Actually, I don't have it ready, but I have a couple other little things to throw in there.
Okay.
Yes, here we go. So somebody asked me last week about this little piece of plywood I put on top of my Powermatic.
Yep.
Just to hold, it holds all my chuck keys, so they're all right in one spot, right where I need them. And then I have a couple of sanding mandrels here, and my depth gauge, and Tommy bar, and a pencil. And there's room for other stuff that I just lay up there temporarily. But these have magnets under each of the ball areas here to hold them on.
Ooh, very nice.
You need a
and down here I hang my
cup with magnet on it, so you can sit that on it. Just kidding.
I didn't hear the first part of that.
Oh, you need a magnet on your coffee cup, and you can sit it on there.
Oh yeah, I don't drink in the shop. Gets too dusty.
Okay.
Oh, my air hose I hang on the bar here that adjusts the motor. So it's always with the I tend to slide my headstock back and forth depending on what I'm turning, because I run it out to the end quite often to hollow out bowls. And on this end of the Powermatic over here on the left, it comes with this little about 4x8 inch metal shelf that you bolt on, and it holds like 6 tools or something. Well, I added a piece of plywood to that. I just put 2 bolts on there, and then I put all my
Nice idea.
tools on the end of the lathe here, so they're all handy.
What's the numbers mean?
The numbers on, let's see,
on the other
on here.
No, on
that's the setting.
Yeah, there.
Right there.
Yeah,
those are the settings for my sharpener. I have there's a 1, 2, 3 on the angle on the sharpener. So those have different grinds on them.
Okay.
Let's see where.
Toby, did I miss how you affix this to the top of the lathe?
I just use this. Actually, you can use caulking, but I actually use liquid nails, which might be overkill. But yeah, I took the there's a rubber pad that comes with the Powermatic that sits on there. I took that off and just put liquid nails on there and just sat it on top.
Yeah.
And I use this area back in here because it's kind of vacant. I can still reach down to grab the handle to slide the headstock, but it doesn't cover up the ventilation here for the inverter. and then all these tools move along with me when I move my headstock back and forth, so they're all in the same place all the time. And then over here on the end, I also have my four spur drive and the steps drive, and then the Jacobs chuck for putting in the tailstock. Oh, I also put it in the headstock when I put these little sanding discs on to finish off the bottom of the bowls.
I assume that piece on the prior picture in the upper right was a light. Is that a magnetic hold on to there?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the bracket on the Powermatic that it holds the cage on, I think, which nobody ever uses.
Tell you a funny story there. I had my cage on with a really big piece and it came loose and knocked the cage. It cracked that bracket.
Wow.
It's
Yeah,
better than your head.
Yeah, for sure.
The C model does not come with that cage anymore. I think they felt like it was added expense with very little value.
I understood they had that cage was for schools when schools used to use Powermatics in shop classes.
Could be. Makes sense.
It does. So one last photo here. Oh, go ahead.
Toby, go ahead. I wanted to make one comment. We talk about muscle memory. The other day, I turned to my rack to reach for something, and I got it. And I said, "Oh, my muscle memory's starting to remember where my tools are. I don't even need to look. I turn, grab it, and I got it." Anyways.
Yep, that's why I have this here. They're always in the same spot, that I know where they're going to be and which tool it is.
Yep.
So this is my piece of burl that I'll have a slideshow for future coffee hour. It's a maple burl. It's 5 inches deep. It's 20 inches across, and it's about 10 inches tall. So this is my little tease for next time, and I'll have all the cuts that I made and the turnings that I got from it in my slideshow. So that's all I have to show.
Well,
any questions on this? I can. Nope.
I see you have it marked out already. It'll be interesting to see what you actually cut out of it, or are you pretty much determined that that's what you're going to cut right there?
Well, there's two different options on this. And, I'll show you which one I chose when I get my slideshow up.
Shall we bet on it this week and see which one's right? No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, Toby.
Yes.
I think we've asked you this in the past. You turn in your outside shop, right?
Yeah, it used to be my garage.
Your garage. So do you have heat in there?
Yes, I have a wood stove.
Oh, okay. Just curious, because it's even now kind of cold. It's like 32 this morning. And people without heat doesn't work so well.
Yeah, I go out every morning and start a fire, and then eat breakfast, and then when I get out there, it's nice and ready to go.
Nice.
Yeah,
all these shavings go in there too.
If I had a wood stove, I wouldn't have to fix funnels. I'd just burn them.
I've done that a couple times.
Do you want to stop your share, or?
Yep,
or
got it. Good. That's still there.
Hey, good enough. John, are you on? I've been charging ahead here. I'm sorry if I missed you. You can take over.
No, that's okay. I had a phone call about an upcoming appointment, so I had to take that.
Okay.
So for continuity, why don't you just keep going, Jim?
Oh, is there continuity? That's the question. I'm sorry. I kind of travel the road like whatever. Ken, yeah, you got a hand up.
Yeah, hey, mine's more of a question than any kind of anything to show. Our club was asked to move our lathes out of the current place that we store them. We have 7 lathes, and the only place right now we can temporarily store them is a barn, but it's kind of a nice barn, but it's a barn. And I was wondering about how we should protect them. You guys have any advice on what to put on the everything? Because maybe a long-term storage we don't know right now. Any ideas? There's something called glide code or something I heard of, but I don't know.
So Ken, the question I guess is it like totally not conditioned? I mean, are you concerned about moisture, I guess, and rusting of the bedways?
Yeah, I'm worried about rusting. It's somebody's shop, and they use it at. It's mostly a barn, but they do go into it fairly often. But again, it's on and off, and they're not going to be used, so it's going to be a long-term kind of thing. Maybe a couple months, maybe 6-8 months.
Well, I've used glide coat, but for some reason the cans always get messed up and they become a pain. So I've just been using a lot of oh, it just went out of my head. Everybody knows what it is. It's the wax from England.
Johnson, no, Mylands.
No, it's not Mylands. It comes in little cans.
Fry wax.
No,
Free?
it's
Renaissance wax.
Yeah, Renaissance wax. And I just, every now and then I'll use WD-40 dry lube and I'll clean off the bedways, and then I don't know if it's redundant, but then I put the Renaissance wax on it. I use that on all my cast iron tables. Now my current lathe is stainless, so it doesn't rust, but I use that still to help things slide back and forth nicely. So I don't know if that'll suffice, but that's what I use, and it seems to keep everything stainless or cast iron pretty free of rust. And I have an unconditioned shop.
Should we separate the headstock and the tailstock from the bed?
Well,
Yeah,
I guess
you might do rust welding there. I don't know.
the question I guess the question I would have, Ken, is, if you have access to it, why not just go in periodically, once a week or something, and slide things around, and that way you won't, if you need to treat it with that underneath the head and tail stocks, maybe you could do that in a banjo.
Okay.
The wax over here that we use, which is made by Axminster, it's a machine wax. And we put that onto our machines. It helps to slide. But luckily we're in a dry environment, so we don't get the rust. But in my workshop, I use it, and it does protect it quite a bit. The other thing is, if I'm not going to use something for quite a long time, I get those silicone pads and put under a canvas cloth of some description, and just put a couple of silicone pads in there, which attracts the moisture as well, which also helps prevent rust.
Hey, Ken, I put some wax in the chat that Veritas makes.
Okay.
It was supposed to be kind of like the replacement for Johnson wax, and it's not terribly expensive. I think it's mostly carnauba wax, but the other I've heard is that Vaseline is a good thing to put on the ways, because it's not as easy, it's not as hard to get off later, like some of those things when you get tools from overseas.
Yeah, okay. My father-in-law was a amateur gunsmith, and he was also a machinist, and he used to wipe all his rifles, and he called it rig. It was rust inhibiting grease. And I have a container full of that, and I was wondering if something like that might work. I don't know.
Ken, here's something I got years ago that Boeing developed, and they used it between dissimilar metals. So it's got waxes, I assume. It's called Bow Shield T9. And I've used that, and mind you, I keep my shop at 50 degrees, so
Right.
I guess you call it a heated shop, but I've had zero problems with rust on the cast surfaces or steel ways. But this has worked out, and it's a fairly thin film. It's not not greasy like the stuff when stuff is shipped, but
Right.
You might try some you might try some axle grease, just a coat of that on all the bare pieces of metal. That'll keep any moisture out. Might be a pain getting off later, but I'm sure some solvent will take it off easily enough.
I'm not sure. I sort of like your idea of actually separating the headstock and tailstock from the wave, just because that way, if there's any corrosion or anything happens, it's all uniform or just on one surface as opposed to both. I've got a bit of corrosion on my own lathe bed just because of my shop, and that spot where the corrosion is always a harder spot to slide through because it's so non-uniform.
You guys are worried more about the bed ways. I'd be worried about the motor and electronics if it's sitting for a while in a moisture environment. Anybody else have issues with that or worry about that?
Well, certainly mothballs may be of value to, if nothing else, keep mice out of setting up nests and stuff inside the equipment like you're talking about, Jim.
Yeah, don't talk to me about that. I had an edit suite in an old farmhouse, and one time one of my decks quit. So I had my engineer from the local PBS station come over, and I said, Ralph, it won't work anymore. We slid it out. There was a big old mice nest right in the corner on the main motherboard. It was a disaster. They had pissed all over it, and it was so yeah, I should have put mothballs in that. So
Well, somebody also suggested to get that moisture absorbing kitty litter and put it in some socks, old socks, and just put it in with it. Maybe put a tarp on just to help with moisture a little bit.
depending on the size of the lathes, I suspect you could use barbecue grill covers as covers. Then they might fit actually, depending on size. Yeah, that would give you a enclosed because they sew them like they're enclosed. So.
I think that would encourage critters, Jim.
Oh,
they pull in sunflower seeds from my bird station into my barbecue and build it right in the burner area. Like it's,
really?
Oh yeah.
I used to have I believe it was mice or chipmunks or something in my garage at our homestead, and they used to love to build nests in the battery compartment of the engine of the car. So
The critters go into my car. They go into the vent, and it's always where the cabin vent is. And it is sometimes awful. So every time I go to the garage, I say, clean the cabin vent.
every time you go to these places do quick oil changes, they always want to sell me a new filter, a cabin filter. Sounds like you would have needed one every time, Ken.
Yeah, pretty much every time I go for inspection, I tell them to change it.
Years ago, I attended some classes at Powermatic, and they recommended baby powder for lubricating the ways. Now, I don't know whether it would absorb moisture and cause more problems or not, but that's a thought.
Okay.
I've been experimenting with beeswax. I melt down beeswax and then add mineral spirits, which makes the same sort of like an abrasive paste, only without the diatomaceous earth. So you've got this soft paste, beeswax, which by itself is extremely hard, and the softening agent is your mineral spirits.
Right.
Clean the ways, apply this beeswax paste on it. In your case, you could leave it on kind of heavy, and then leave it. As the mineral spirits flashes off, you then have a coating of pure beeswax. My shop is unheated. I have a machine lathe. I've got 2 wood lathes plus all the other stuff. I have no issues with rust. I'm in Canada. Our humidity is up and down here depending on temperatures, and we go through the full gambit of temperatures. The other thing, do not put anything under a barbecue cover or wrap it in plastic. because the moisture will get in there. And once it's in there, you got yourself a little greenhouse and it'll stay in there forever. My machine lathe, I put a towel over it. So the towel is enough to keep the moisture from condensing on the cast iron, but it doesn't trap anything in there. When it does warm up a little bit, it can evaporate.
Okay, okay. That sounds right.
I have some drop cloths, some of the cloth ones you use for painting, and I put one of those over my metal lathe, just like Malcolm was talking about. If nothing else, it keeps a lot of the dust that would get into the equipment out of there.
I don't know what they do down here by the river, but in the wintertime, they seal the boats in plastic. I mean, it is wrapped in plastic and sealed, but they have two little vent caps on either side, opposite sides. But those are the way to protect the boat. So I don't know what, I can't believe they don't get some moisture in it, but I guess if you could manage to seal up it before it, don't do it on a rainy day, but do it on a day when it's warm and dry.
Jim, your boats, when you talked about those vent caps, are probably having air circulating. So if you have continued dry air circulating through underneath the wrapper, as you're saying, you won't get the condensation that you're talking about.
And that's maybe the secret. I never thought about it before, but it's very common. Boy, everybody gets their boat covered. I used to just throw tarps over mine, but didn't have the money for the plastic wrappings. So.
But boats are built to withstand moisture. That's their job.
You're right about that.
You know, when you get machine parts, a lot of times they come in like an oil paper.
Yeah.
Do you guys know anything about those kind of oil paper? Is that something we can consider?
Yeah.
It sounds to me, Ken, like you just need to use them. That's the problem. Except when I'm using them, I'm putting more junk on than I worry about rust. I'm dripping CA on, I'm dripping finish on it, and every now and then I got to go scrape the ways off when my banjo won't slide. And I go, Jim, do you guys have a tray or something you put under when you're working, finishing, turning stuff?
Well, I use a piece of a canvas, just a chart piece, and it's folded up, and I just throw it over it right below where I'm working. So anything that drips, it's not dripping on my lathe. I got $10,000-$15,000 piece of equipment there, and I don't want to throw junk and crap all over it. I want it looking good for 10 years. So.
It sounds like my problem is I don't have an expensive enough lathe.
Doesn't matter if it's cheap or expensive. That's your equipment.
Right.
You want to look after it.
Yeah. I worry I cover mine when I go to cut something off that's glued on, with a thin parting tool. My wife declared one of the nice soft white carpets in the bathroom time to exit. I said, "Oh, I want that in my shop," and I threw that across the lathe ways whenever I'm cutting something off, because last thing I want to do is a piece to hit the ways when it comes off all finished. But that's a great idea, Stu.
It's cheap and easy to work with, and I just pull it off, fold it up. It's just like a piece of paper almost, but it's a heavy enough canvas. Stuff isn't going to leak through, and it's covered in CA drippings and finish drippings that and especially when I was doing flood coating, it's quite easy to drip something, and it can drip there and it's cured before you actually find it. Sometimes you don't want that happening, so it's rather on the canvas and just turf it. And I gave Bert a piece, and I don't know if he's using it or not, but I think it's a great way to go.
Yeah, I don't even have the same color. I think it was brown when you gave it to me.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of white and gray and black.
Oh, I think it's all colors. That's great. You're using it.
It sounds like it's old like us, white and gray, so.
Yeah, it matches our hairstyle.
I want to go back to a question. This is more philosophical almost. Don surprised me with all his colorful stuff and this new Furini or whoever it is. I want to go look at him, but you know, I used to always think of wood turning as wood, as we try to feature the wood. Now it seems more and more we want to decorate it. We want to cut stuff into it. We want to put color on it. I mean, I love dyeing it. It still has the feel of wood, but when you start painting them, I go, well, why don't you just use something else? you know, do any of you are like real? I know Toby has been an advocate of dyeing. He's done it a long time. I'm talking about dyeing wood, but what about this painting and decorating and embossing and what do they call it? Embellishing it. I hate that word. You're hurting the wood. You're not enhancing it when you embellish it. That's not the right word. Now, am I speaking a little? I'm speaking a little firmly about my distaste for that.
One of the things I think about that is that it takes advantage of taking a shitty looking piece of wood and turning it into something beautiful. And like a lot of times you get a piece of wood that's really, really bland. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's kind of bland. And I like some of the things that Sherry's built where she's taken that birch or maple pieces that are pretty much white and turned it into a canvas where it's like, hey, your imagination is the only limitation, and they're stunning. And it still takes wood turning skill to get there, and then you just make it look really pretty.
Yeah, I better be careful because Sherry has done a lot of beautiful stuff like that.
I think
No offense taken, but yeah,
Good.
Bert nailed it. I mean, we in Alberta have access to very little hardwood at all, and so just using what we have around us a lot of times it's the wood itself has no character, so you end up just making bowl after bowl that just kind of looks the same. So it's like, okay, what can I do to add some visual interest? So
I both of you. I like your comment. My comment is if I have a really nice piece of figured wood, I'm not going to paint it or do something else. If I set out to do the embellishment like you're talking about, I'm always looking for something that's preferably something that's easy to carve and stuff like that as well. So it's, poplar or something like that was excellent for embellishment because it's smooth. It's got a relative uniform grain from my perspective. But if I'm going to embellish, I want to start off with something that I'm not taking it over. On the other hand, when Toby does his dyeing, sometimes the dyeing actually enhances the figure. So again, it's not always just about whatever, it's what actually brings the total piece out, not just the embellishment itself. Same with Don's piece. It's like, that was really beautifully embellished today. So
the other thing, Doug, I think about is I want to be turning wood. I don't want to be spending the day microscopically carving all kinds of notches. That's part of my ramminess, maybe, or whatever the word is you want to use. I want to be able to put chisel to wood and create something that way. I love the embellishment you guys do. I'm not a carver or somebody that has to be more of an artist eye to see how the colors go and how the textures go to enhance the piece. I'm afraid most of my work would diminish the wood, not embellish it. So I think that's part of my resistance personally to the idea of embellishment. So,
Jim.
Yes, Don.
I've got another piece in my hand.
I'm going to highlight you. There you go. I love it. Now, how did you do that, Don?
You were saying you don't want to spend hours doing it. This took me about 10 minutes on each side with a Dremel.
What were you using?
A Dremel.
Nah, that would take you an hour.
No, you just got it on your lathe, and with your Dremel, you just do with your Dremel, you know. Where are
John,
we?
Don, I think you're absolutely right. It takes you 10 minutes, but the fact that you don't mention is it took you 30 years of practicing, so it took you 10 minutes.
Oh, gee.
Right, Doug. But I did the back and then the front. It was just a plain piece of sycamore.
And what kind of burr? What kind of burr did you have on your Dremel, Don?
It was a ball. Yeah, a ball cutter.
Okay.
A saber tooth, a saber tool.
Yeah, it was. I said a book. No, it was a. Yeah.
Okay.
It was at the end of a pen.
Okay.
Okay.
Now,
And then-
did you paint that black before you went at it with the Dremel tool?
Yeah, sprayed it black. Did this engraving. Sorry. Yeah. Again. Yes. Did it black. Engraved it. Sprayed that black. Rubbed it down again slightly, and then sprayed it with the type of turquoise blue, which shows up.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Now, Don, the very edge, I turned it flat toward the camera. I want to see the edge of, yeah. So you left that white. Did you sand that intentionally back, or did it just not get done?
No, I didn't paint it.
Ah.
Left it as that. But on this side, when I'd done that, I then put a ridge in here so that it took away any excess paint from the base. I did. So on the front, I did all of that first before I turned the bowl. That makes sense?
Yes.
Can I add something else? That's very good, Don. Can I add something else to this whole business of embellishment, Jim? I think when we're taking a look at it artistically, I am doing all sorts of things now with wood turning that I swore I'd never do when I started out. But each time, embellishment didn't start out as a huge embellishment. It started out as a single bead around the bowl. Then I got to 2 beads, and then 4 beads, and then I decided I want to put a line on the beads. And then, so it actually is a building process and an artistic exploration when you're going down a rabbit hole. If it doesn't attract you, then you tend not to do that sort of thing. And I marvel at your photography. It's like, how can you go and you just take 5 snaps and you've got a beautiful picture? And it's like, I can never do that, but I don't have the experience either. So I think embellishment isn't necessarily always the intended outcome. It's the exploration of your art that's going on. One thing I really object to is when people say, well, wood turning isn't art. Guys, we're working in art. There's no question. It's an expression and it's an expression of our creativity. And however you choose to do that is a very individual thing that people need to, take pride in.
Yeah, and I'd like to say to painters, if you don't like what you've done, you just grab another color and cover it over. Once we put a chisel to the wood, there's no going back. So that's when I grab the piano wire hanging at the post in the center of the shop and start making black lines. That's my embellishment.
And I think what Doug, I agree with Doug. I think sometimes there's a journey, and for some of us that are left brain analytical types, it takes a while for us to come to this part of the journey. After you develop your craftsmanship skills and your tool skills, then you start looking more to, sanding and finishing, and then you move on to embellishing. Some people that are more artistic jump into the embellishing a little bit earlier, sometimes to the expense of not refining their turning skills, but other people, they jump into the embellishing after they've perfected their turning skills, and they decide they want to just move on and learn something new.
Mike, you're right. And I think we have to learn to use our tools better before we even try to be artists. I'm discovering that I didn't know my tools well enough when I started down this trail of multi-axis turning. man, controlling the tool is where it's all at. I mean,
Going back onto what Mike and Doug was saying, this is a little hat. Can you see it?
Yeah.
But what would it look
I'm
like?
going to highlight you, Don. There you go.
What would that look like if I hadn't embellished the hat rim?
Exactly. So you're embellishing something because something was missing. So
yes. Just imagine that wouldn't have looked anything like that without that embellishment.
How did you embellish that, Don? What did you do? Did you just stain it or seal it or something? I see the two black lines, but
well, the two black lines are actually put in with a piece of formica.
Oh yes, yep.
And a very light colouring with a brown pencil, colouring pencil.
Okay.
And that
so it's a little small for your head, Don. It would look good, but it's a little small. That's cute.
It's just, it shows that embellishing can sometimes enhance a project.
Yeah.
Without it, I don't think it would look anything like what it does now.
What is the wood, Don?
That is a bit of sycamore or a maple.
Okay.
And finally, to your point, Jim, about your turning, when you went off-center turning, what you discovered by going down a creative path is sometimes you have to back up a little bit before you go down it again. So you have to back up, relearn the skills that you realize you didn't have, and then go down that path again. But it's still driven and it's forced you to become a better turner in the process.
Yes, agree with Doug.
Yeah, and you have to be a little risky because I never like to fail at it. I'm crazy that way. I never threw a piece away. Well, I've thrown a lot more pieces away since I've done multi-axes.
I'm still highlighted, Jim.
Yeah, I got you. Sorry, Don.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, I can't talk and do something else at the same time. No comment.
I think John would be happy. John would be proud of you, Jim.
That of what?
Well, hosting the coffee hour.
Well, it was a good one. Thanks, guys. We didn't have a lot of hands up, but and ladies, we had a lot of conversation. It was good stuff. I mean, I enjoy the idea stuff around. I call it the philosophical wood turning, and I agree very much with Doug, his comment about we are creating art, and boy. It's not just about how nice you got the piece, but how it looks, how the shape is, and all that. It's very much there, and it's 11 o'clock. So, John, did I have it right? Was this 243, or did I have it wrong?
245.
I have 246.
Oh my!
Yeah, 246.
Yeah, 246.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Hey, well, I hope John is recovering well, and we'll see him next week.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing you guys and ladies.
Yeah,
I'm sorry I say that, and ladies. I don't know how to. I'm going to start saying you folks. Want to see you folks next.
I don't think it's necessary to call us out. Just you guys is fine.
Thank you, Jerry.
Take care, all.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.